What's up, guys? Welcome back to the vlog. Today we're going to take you on a journey in the Bad Apple RX-7, a car that I labored over for the last few months with Ricky and the boys here at Throtl and the boys at Official DNA Garage. This is one of those videos that's been a long time coming. As you guys know, if you've watched all the videos, we had some trials and tribulations with this car, basically being a full ground up rebuild and slash restoration of the car, which turned out pretty epic if you ask me. But one thing I've been holding away from you guys is the driving portion. So essentially my goal for today is to show you guys what we built and do something that you don't normally get a chance to do with other cars on YouTube, which is go for a ride in the car. I'm gonna go ahead and strap a GoPro into the Bad Apple. We're gonna go for a little cruise, and I'm gonna tell you guys sort of some of the things I love about the car, and hey, maybe even some of the things I hate about the car or still want to do to the car. But the end game here is to give you guys an idea of what it's like to go for a ride in the Bad Apple. So why don't we hop in and get out of here. If you've ever owned an FD RX-7 before, you'll know why I close the door like this. That's just a little trick of the trade for RX-7's FD specifically, because the door seals are always real tight, especially since I replaced these seals once there's a vacuum inside the car for whatever reason. It's difficult to close the door. So if you pull from the door handle, a lot of times you run the risk of breaking the door handle itself because these things are so brittle nowadays. Always grab the door frame, boys. Little Mickey tip there for you. All right, guys, now that we're seated in the Bad Apple, go ahead and strap in, as everyone should. Go ahead and fire her up. So one thing I love about the Bad Apple is once it's up and running and idling after it's warmed up, it has the best idle and feel of any car I've ever built. I used to watch old hot rod shows and stuff like that back in the day. My dad would take me to car shows, and I used to love seeing the hot rods leave and sit at the stoplight. When they sit at the stoplight, you'd see them because they had the big cam. They sit there and shake back and forth. That's why I built a full bridge rotary, because I wanted that shake. I went with a urethane mount on purpose because I wanted to sit here and feel the rotors turning when it was at idle. And I'm not sure if you guys can tell through the camera, but right now we're sitting here shaking back and forth, which is so awesome. It is a welcome feature to this car that I think is really visceral and helps you understand what the beast is that lies beneath the bonnet. So let's go ahead and get out of here. One thing you might hear is when I let the clutch out, you might hear what sounds like a belt slipping. It's not actually a belt, and it's not that noticeable. You may not even pick it up. But what that is it's a twin plate clutch. Action was nice enough to build me a badass street clutch, but it is a twin plate. It's very drivable. I'm actually very impressed with the street manners that it has for a twin plate metal clutch. So kudos to Action Clutch for building a badass product that is made for a race car but is usable on the street. Love it. One thing about the interior of this car, I took painstaking care to make the interior as new as possible. I replaced as many of the parts inside with new OEM parts as I could on purpose, because to me, the interior is where you spend the majority of your time. And if it doesn't feel good and look good, the overall experience of the car is thrown out the window, in my opinion. So, as you guys have seen in previous videos, pretty much all this stuff is brand new. The dashboard's out of a car that had 30,000 miles on it, was garage kept. All the center area stuff is all brand new. Most of this stuff is now no longer available through Mazda. I was able to get a lot of it at the very last second before it was discontinued. So I found myself in a very fortunate position when I rebuilt this car, and that those things were available. Now, door cards on these things are another story. Finding a good set of door cards is tough. Finding ones that aren't broken and in a million pieces is even tougher. So I was able to source these door cards from my buddy Danny for a couple $100. He gave me the friend hookup on them. They're in great condition, as you can see. and I did source another pair that I ended up paying $800 for that was in just as good a condition. So I ended up using some parts from both panels to put together one perfect set, or a close to perfect set. Now, I'm not sure if you can pick it up on the mic, but there is a little rattle in this door, and I just had this door card off 2 days ago to put my new window switch in, which is awesome, by the way. Automatic, and allows a nice cool air in. There's a little rattle, so I need to look into that and see what's causing that, but pretty common for these cars. The one other thing about my cars is I like to run them pretty low. This car is on coilovers, where I do like to run air suspension on a lot of my cars, and this car may actually get air at some point. Oh, it's so good, boys. So yeah, I run the car pretty low, so some of these streets in San Diego, especially near the valley, are pretty rough on this car, but I will say, the Tane coilovers are really good. I literally took them straight out of the box, bolted them on the car, and never messed with a single setting. And I'm so happy with the way they are working that I haven't even played with the dampening at all. Ride height is pretty much where they were out of the box, so what can you say? That's a pretty solid setup. So thanks to Tane for making a bad product, man. Really good stuff right out of the box. So as you guys can see on the city streets, this car is super drivable. Now, if you know anything about Bridgeport cars, full Bridgeport cars, and even partial bridge for that, is they like to buck at low RPM. So say you're cruising along and you let your RPMs, like right now, I'm at 2,500 RPM. Normally in a Bridgeport car, you'd start getting a buck, 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 buck. And it's super uncomfortable. It's no fun for the passenger. So that's one thing I'm really proud of about this car. The way we ported the bridge on it is really conducive to daily drivability. And then the other 50% of that equation is the tuning. So Abel Ibarra, who's a legendary rotor head and epic tuner, I actually had him tune this car because I knew he was the man that could make this car daily drivable for me. After all, that's my goal. I want to be driving this car back and forth to work every day if I want. And I have been doing that, which is awesome. So I'll show you guys, you know, obviously I've shown you guys that I can be in like second or third gear and let the RPMs go down to say 1,500 to 2,000 RPM, and this thing does not buck at all. That was something that I really focused on, and between John, the engine builder over at DNA Garage, and Abel, we were able to get rid of that altogether. So that's pretty rad. I guess let's go over horsepower and torque. So this car, with the current setup, is making about 450 horsepower and a little over 335 foot-pounds of torque. Doesn't sound like much, right? But one thing you have to think about is the overall weight and balance of this car. At 2,600 pounds or thereabouts, this car becomes a rocket ship at anything above 350, 375 horsepower. And I'm about to show you guys that. The Falcon tires that we've recently put on, the new Advan wheels, are awesome. They're the RT615K Plus. I am able to break them loose at will with this car, even though they're pretty sticky tires. What I will say about them is they're very predictable. When they do decide to break loose, I know it's going to happen. Okay, so as you guys can see, this thing accelerates very rapidly. And one thing that I love about the Bridgeport is at 7,000 RPM, where my red line's about 8,200, at 7,000 RPM, it feels like a shot of nitrous kicks in. And that's the Garrett turbo coming on, working with the Bridgeport. The turbo's already spooled, but for some reason at 7,000 RPM, all of a sudden this thing opens up, and it is gone. It's like it's shot out of a cannon. So this car needs the high RPM in order to be a weapon, but what's really cool is below that 7,000 RPM mark, it's fast enough to fend off just about anything I've come across, and it's super drivable, which for me, again, is the key. So this is, this is fifth gear at 2,600 RPM. It's a totally streetable car. No droning of exhaust, no annoying noises, no rattles that I can hear. I'm really, really pumped with the way this car turned out, guys. I'm not sure I could have asked for a better combination, and man, it's just a joy to drive. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you see my videos. Whenever I drive this thing, I post up a funny joke about this being my daily, because I've come to love it so much, and it is so easy and fun to drive that I do drive it every day. And if you don't believe me, you can check out the chips on the front bumper, because there's a lot of them from me driving it on the freeway. I don't know if you guys can hear the D-cell pops in the background. When I push in the clutch, or when I'm shifting through the gears and I'm driving rapidly, it does shoot flames out the tailpipe. Not large ones like Ricky's, but it does do a plume of fire out of the apex exhaust, and that's pretty cool at night. I've had people text me and DM me that have seen me on the freeway, said they saw it, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, so hey, in typical San Diego fashion, I've run into some stop and go traffic. You guys are about to get a first-hand taste of, if you were to daily this car, what it would be like in stop and go traffic. It's not as fun as driving 80 or 65 on the freeway, but you will see that this car is fully drivable even in traffic, and fun at that. So one cool thing about driving an FD RX-7 on the regular is that you get a lot of funny looks and a lot of thumbs up from other people. This car has pretty much become a dinosaur due to the fact that there's new cars out, and these are, I mean, let's face it, no longer desirable, because a lot of people don't have the time, the money, or the desire to fiddle around with the 13B should they run into problems, which at this age of a car, they almost all have. So these cars are rare to see on the road. People love seeing it. I get so many thumbs up. I get people taking photos constantly. It's a really neat feeling, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I'm really trying to think of some things I don't like about this car, because it's easy to sit here and point out all the things I love. I mean, after all, I built the car, so there's a lot of things to love. So I'm trying to think of some negatives. And man, I'm having a really hard time. I really am thoroughly enjoying this car. And I guess the negatives would be that I don't love the body at the moment. As most of you guys know, I backed this into TJ's trailer by accident one morning and scratched up the rear right, which is a pretty major flaw on the car. And it's a little embarrassing to someone that likes things to be just perfect. And the reason it hasn't been fixed yet, you're probably wondering, is because I wanted to get the car running and driving properly. When the accident happened, we still hadn't had the final tune done on the car yet, and this was even before I blew up the first engine on the dyno. So we're now to a point where this thing can go off back to BCC Unlimited and get repaired. We also, if you don't follow along, we also had somebody in my neighborhood threw a football or a basketball or something and dented my driver's side door. I did attempt to pull those dents out, and in the process, there's still a little crease dent and a little mark on the paint that's going to need to be repaired as well. So that'll all get addressed when we go back to BCC Unlimited, and at that point, this car will be pretty much, for all intents and purposes, a finished car. Now, I do have some plans for the future. I do want to re-gear the rear end. I'm going to go to a 4.4, I believe, and I picked up a really badass differential cover that allows for a diff pump and some other things from built to apex. I'm going to get that powder coated and then get that installed when I do the rear differential. So that'll be an exciting add to this car because it's going to make it perform a little differently. It's going to come on power a little sooner than it is currently, which is going to be hard to imagine because the Garrett turbo is constantly spooled. The 3584 Garrett Gen 2 is such a bad unit that the internals are so good at this thing's basically spooled pretty much non-stop, it seems. And it seems to be the perfect turbine size for the 13B for someone trying to make, you know, 350 to 550 horsepower. This car made 539 on the dyno the day we blew it up, and we detuned it down to 450. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's 450 is heaps of power for this car. It's plenty and keeps it well within its operating range without worrying about blowing stuff up. So now I'm going to pull into my home away from home, which is the Chevron gas station, and it is essentially where I spend a lot of time because 13Bs are very thirsty, especially this peripheral ported version. So I'm going to go ahead and mix me up some premix, top this bad boy off, and we'll go for another cruise. All right, just got some petrol. Just tossed in 10 gallons with 10 ounces of Idemitsu premix. If you guys know anything about rotaries, premix is the way to go if you don't have an oil metering pump, which most people remove when they do a high performance build to keep from scavenging old dirty oil into the engine. So now we're, oh man. 10 gallons don't do much on this tank. Oh, the needle's just moving slow. Okay. All right, so let's hop back on the road. I'm gonna head back towards the hunt quarters now. A little bit of freeway driving, a little bit of city driving, so you guys can get an idea what the daily cruise is like. I wish I could hand hold the camera and show you guys around the interior. I'm very proud of this interior and the way that it turned out. I don't know if you guys can see all the Alcantara suede that's in here. The seat treatments are all redone in full leather and Alcantara. I pretty much replaced anything that I could that was a fake pleather type material with real leather. That way, when you get in this car, it smells like a brand new car, which is really cool. Something that I pride myself on when I redo 90s cars is the overall feel of the interior, because again, this is where you spend all your time when you're driving it. So I'm really happy with the way the interior has turned out. I've also modernized quite a few things. One of the things that I really like is the head unit, which came from Pioneer, and it is an in-dash CarPlay unit, so that you just plug in your iPhone to it and it runs Apple CarPlay, which is really cool. That means I don't have to pick up my phone if somebody calls me to text or to answer a phone call. I can just speak right here to this speaker, and just like any other hands-free device, I can have a hands-free call in a 1990s, early 1990s car, which hands-free might have been available in the 90s, but definitely not on a Mazda RX-7. Maybe a Lexus or something like that, or Cadillac. Well, this guy really wants his McDonald's, so I'm gonna let him go. Oh man, this is where running your car super low is a pain in the ass. Oh. No problem, we got this. Oh, okay. Earlier I was saying I was gonna look for some things that I didn't necessarily like about the car. And now that I'm actually in it and giving it some throttle, I'm actually really starting to not enjoy the open wastegate dump tubes. And I think once I get on the freeway here, you guys will take notice of how loud atmospheric dumps are when you get into the gates when they open. It's definitely something that is an acquired taste, and I think on track cars it's a welcome sound. But on this car, being that I am driving it a lot, I'm kind of over it. I really don't enjoy it anymore. You can really hear the wastegates open, and this thing just screams. And for something that you want to be comfortable in and want to be able to take people for drives in and not blow their eardrums out, it's a little excessive. So I think one of the future mods is I might work with Eric over at Ilk Fab and actually reroute the dump tubes back into the exhaust. I really think it'd be a better sound for this car and let it fly a little more under the radar than it currently does, because you can hear this thing from a far ways away. So right now I'm just in 5th gear on the freeway at 3,000 RPM, and the car has plenty to give. If I just give on the throttle a little bit, she's back in boost and off and running. A quick little 4th gear downshift, and she wants to go pretty quickly. And if I get real aggressive on the freeway, give her a 3rd gear downshift. Man, does this thing rip. Woo! It's crazy because the wastegate noises bother me sometimes. Other times it's just a great noise to hear, but I think it's when I'm by myself I really enjoy hearing it. Yeah. So one other really cool feature on this car is that I'm running a Haltech 2500 Elite ECU. It's a great box for this car. Basically allows us to tune everything that we want to and monitor everything that we want to with the engine. All right, guys, well, I'm gonna go ahead and head back to the hunt quarters now. I hope you enjoyed the test drive with the Bad Apple RX-7. I'm really enjoying this car, if you guys didn't get that sentiment from me already. It is easily the nicest project that I've ever completed. It is the most enjoyable car to drive that I've ever completed, and is easily the most rewarding. So this isn't the last you're going to be seeing of the Bad Apple, and we want to do some more external driving video footage as well, so we'll go ahead and try to include some of that in here. But I wanted to go ahead and take 1 second and thank you guys all for all of your undying support on this project. I know that it was, it was done pretty quickly. The rate that Ricky and I actually completed this car was pretty rapid, and we have a lot of people to thank for that. All of our great sponsors and supporters, such as DNA Garage and many others. But one thing that we're going to do now is enjoy the car, and as you can see, I'm doing that. But I do want to bring you guys along for the journey as we continue to develop the car, and I hope you welcome that. I feel like this car still has a lot of little things that I could continue to do with it, and I just want to know that you guys want to see that. So if you can leave me a comment down below in the comment section if you want to see this car evolve into more than what it is today, and maybe any changes that you'd like to see would be pretty cool. Would like to know what you guys think about me potentially putting the 20B into this car instead of starting a different project, and putting this Bad Apple 13B into potentially a different project. That would be something that I'd like to know about. But to get back on topic, I want to thank all you guys so much for bearing with us during this crazy journey of getting this car from basically a throwaway to a showstopper that backs it up on the street. It means the world to me, the support that outpoured when we did start this project, and the amount of people that stuck with it through the end, to the point where I'm now able to enjoy this car for what it is pretty much every day. You guys are the best. I hope you guys enjoyed your little nickel tour in the Bad Apple and your little ride along. We're going to be doing more of this stuff, so let us know your thoughts. Peace out. We'll see you guys next time.